Okay, so now we're going to do a canvas today, and I'm going to show you how we're going to build it up, and we're going to do abstraction really fast and just put it down with the palette knife and the brush with scraping. So this is the first step. I'm going to do a bunch of different ways to do it, and we're just looking at blocks of color. If you want to mask out certain areas, you could take your masking tape. So that's a tape that you're using, your painter's tape, and you could put it along certain areas where you want to drag the knife or the paintbrush, and then you can pull it off so you get a straight edge. Okay, so that means putting a little bit of tape. I'm not going to do that today. So I'm just going to, this is what you can do at home. So I'm just going to build this up super fast, and I'm making up these colors. I just put them down. I know what's going to happen. So I'm going to start first with a light blue, and I'm using the half blade. You could use any palette knife. And do you see how I'm not even thinking about this? The only thing I'm thinking about is the direction of how I'm putting it down. And this is going across. And I'm just picking up the color with my knife and just putting this down. I'm not really thinking about it. I'm trying to do it as fast as I can. And I'm moving this all around. It's not taking a lot of time. And I'm not really using that much paint. You can see on the back here. That's a good thing with the palette knife is I can keep spreading this paint. I have enough paint now on the back of this knife to do 4 or 5 layers, okay? You wouldn't believe it, but yes. The other thing I can do is I can decide if I'm gonna scrape in, right? Or if I'm gonna take off and I'm gonna remove so I get these kind of things with the sky. And I'm gonna take off some of this color so I get a little bit of a wash, of a gradient. So that's the way you would make the wash with the palette knife, right? You put it on and then you're kind of scraping it off. You see how when you scrape it off, it gets very thin? Okay, if I put it on, it's heavy. That's the difference, okay? So I'm gonna just start this up as a wash because I'm gonna finish this later, but I'm just putting this on now. That's it. If I wanted different strokes, like say if I wanted some kind of Van Gogh strokes, which I'm not gonna put, but say I could go and I could literally have this white paint on the edge of my palette knife, and I could make believe that I now, you see I got these really fast. Let's pretend that they're clouds or something, okay? And I have these clouds like that. There's no thinking about it. I'm just picking up again. I haven't cleaned my knife, and I'm just putting that color on top. If I don't like it, I can scrape it off. It's really good, and I can recycle it, and I can go back on top. It's simple, okay? It's like putty. If I wanted a texture, I'll show you what we're going to do. So let's put this here. Now I'm going to fill this in with another color. I'm just going to wipe off my knife on the edge of my rag, and maybe I'm going to have white and yellow. And I'm sorry, white and, what did I choose? Oh, white and yellow. So let's do yellow, and I'm going to do white. And the only reason why I'm thinking of what would work for if there's light behind the sky, so I might have a little bit of yellow, and I'm just filling in this area. This is going to be the beginning of something that's going to be a little bit more abstract. I'm just picking this up, and I'm just filling this in. And I sent you examples of different types of paintings that you're going to look at, so you can see this. The other thing is now, if I want to pull this color and I don't want to make this a green, I can lightly pull that on top, but I have to practice with my hand. You see how I'm moving my hand? And I can lightly pull this on top. And do you see what happens of how it could blend on the sides here? But I still see that blue underneath. I don't have to use any kind of gel medium. And I'm going to do the same thing again over here, right? So I'm just, and you see how I'm using my knife? I'm moving it. Do you see how thin I can make that, or her not on the outside of where it's meat, where it's blending? If I push harder, it blends. If I don't want it to, I can wipe it off again on my rag, pick up some more white and yellow. I got a tiny bit, always more of the lighter color, and I'm just moving that through the canvas. And when I'm gonna blend it a little bit on the edges, but I want that yellow. In a lot of abstract paintings, you see the colors mixing at the corners, right, where they're meeting in the borders. But you see how I can bring down that yellow when it's not mixing that well turning too much of a green. And I can bring this down in here in like these empty spaces where there's white, and I can bring down some of this light. If this was, a realistic painting, right, that would be blended. But you see how that layers? Okay, the next thing that I'm going to do is that then I'm going to move to this next area. So I guess, I don't know what this is going to be, a cobalt. I had a cobalt teal blue. I guess I'll move that down. Maybe that's going to be a mountain. So I'll have this, and I'll mix it with a little bit of green, maybe some yellow, who knows, and some white. I'll get this color. Okay, it's fine, it works good for me. And I'm just gonna put this on here. The other thing is when I'm doing it, I haven't cleaned my knife at all, right? You notice that I got all of these colors on the back. And I'm picking it, and if I want it, when I'm doing things that are abstract, I can leave that. You see how I didn't get that whole full stroke? Or I can have it like this. Most of the time when it's abstract, you'll see these colors like just blending into each other. That's the cool thing about it. You see how this just blends into each other? And then I can do that again, and I'm just going to drag this and take everything that I have on my knife and try to get it off now. And I don't care if it goes, a little bit under. And you'll see that the mountains that I sent you, those examples of the mountains, are having this going on. In other words, you're not doing each shape differently. You see how I can get all those different textures together at one time? Okay? The next thing is I'm going to do this over here, and this is going to be an abstract. Maybe it's going to be, I don't know, blue. I'm just making this up. Blue and green, maybe area where we have a lot of trees. I don't have a dark green now, so I'll use this. And what I'm going to do is, the other thing about abstraction is you want to make sure that when you're using whatever you are using, that each area of the canvas is kind of treated a little bit differently. So you'll notice the examples that I sent you, each of those areas. So try to use your knife differently. I'm just going to kind of pat this. I'm not worried about it. And again, this is what I would call my beginning. I'm going to put other colors on top of here and layer this, but I need to have something underneath, right? And it's kind of looking a little bit messy. And the cool thing is that the reason I did this color underneath is I can also put another color directly on top. And what ends up happening is it's not like, if you're using oils, it will blend. If you press hard, but if you press lightly, you can get that new color that's directly on top of it where you're getting that kind of texture, okay? So it's very abstract. Then for here, I'm gonna have to have some kind of dark line. So I'm gonna pick up maybe a little bit of blue and purple, and I can move this line going across. And what I like to do is when I do it, I drag the side of my knife. So I'm pushing and I'm just dragging. I'm pushing and I'm dragging. That's all I'm doing. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this color down. And then I need to pull something from here up because that's a light blue, right? Remember we said that what happens with reflections, if I'm going to make that water, the sky would have to be reflected in it. So I'd have to pull this color up. In order to do that, I'm going to turn this the opposite way, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull down. And I'm going to pull down these reflections into each other. And I'm going to fix it. But again, this is why I want you to listen to your music. I don't want you to stress out and be thinking about this isn't working. It doesn't look the way that the teacher had it, or I can't replicate exactly what she has. I cannot replicate this exactly either again. This is why I'm doing it for you, to show you something. So what I'm doing is I'm just pulling down these colors now, just with the knife, and I'm going to move this over here. Just move it like this, okay? And then I'm going to turn it back around. And this is what I should have at this point. And I want you, when you're doing it at home, I'm going to show you how we're going to do trees and things super fast. I want you just to practice doing this. This is what I'm doing. It's not super realistic, obviously. But I want you to practice just kind of dragging, you see this down. And then let's put something there so it's not anything, so it's not empty. And we'll use another color green. I think I'm running out of my dark green. And we'll just put a dark green there. So, and maybe I'll have a dark green again in some brown and a little bit of purple. And I'm just gonna put this here. And I'm gonna layer this with another color because there's no contrast yet, you see? But I wanna block it out. So when you're doing those paintings, no matter what color they are, I want you to do it, and you can do it with a brush or a knife if you want to soften it. You see how I can soften that area if I wanted to? And I want you to have something like this and do it this fast and don't think about it. And then we're going to put more layers on top. So I'm going to come around and I'm going to keep painting it. I'm going to show you how it's drastically going to change, okay? And like I said, don't be afraid. When I paint, when I'm doing something abstract, I'll put things on like this. Like I'll show you something. And I'll do it on purpose. And then I'll drag it. And this is what I was showing you in the video. And I'll keep doing like that until it's blending or mixing or I don't like it. I always have my rag with me. And I want you to bring next week also kind of like, I showed you in the video, it's kind of like Reynolds wrap. It's like that kind of fall where it's, so you can do the abstract paintings real fast. And I'm going to show you something. I'm going to take everything and change everything in here and the look of it in 2 minutes by just going with this kind of, this method of this brush. And I'm going to soften, get rid of all this. And I do this on my old canvases, but you got to get a clean rag. I do this on all of my canvases when I want to soften things, or I have an old palette that I want to paint on top of. So this is kind of like the start of the painting, you know, that I'm looking at, and then I can drastically change it. And I want to show you the difference of how it looks now, how it's drastically changed, of how I would use it. What happened?
It looks very modern. Right?
Yeah, of how I would use it as a background. And I could keep doing that, but I don't have another rag. Hold on. I do. Okay. And when you look at a lot of the Impressionist painting, you will notice that what they're doing is they have these wonderful washes on top of each other where some areas are very transparent and you can kind of see, you know, the texture and the things going through. But what I will show you next week too is how we can do transfers. So I could do a photo transfer of a person underneath and have this kind of showing through, or a lot of different things. If you had a photograph, I can show you how to do that. And then we build it up like this, totally changed, okay? But you can't do that until you first get to that point. So I didn't use a lot of paint, so I want you to try something like this. And then you can go and you can paint. And it's better if you try it with a landscape. It works really well with the landscape because you have it thick and then have it with the reflective light. And I'll show you of how we can build this up and gradually change it. And I'll show you in other land over there of how we got that texture and how gradually it changes. Okay? So I'll see you next week. For those of you that aren't in class, watch your video. Okay.